Alright, so recently I added me a new item to my garage tools, and it's this little plasma cutter that I got over at Harbor Freight. Now I bought this thing and they're not giving me any kind of sponsorship, so I actually just wanted to see what it's going to do. So fresh out of the box here, and there's no adjustment to it. I don't know why people do big old long videos, but I mean all it's got is an amp setting. And it says it's going to cut anything that's conductive. So we just got this thing hooked up, and I have never used a plasma cutter before. So we're going to see just what it'll cut, because I got some various thickness stuff over here. Some steel, piece of stainless, and some aluminum. And I want to see if this thing's going to cut. I'm even going to try to cut through that big old brake rotor right there. So let's get the camera set up. And like I say, there's nothing much to talk about on this thing. Let's just see if this thing cuts, and we'll worry about how pretty it is later when I do adjustments for the current and things like that once I figure out how to use one. So here we go, first try out of the box with somebody who's never used a plasma cutter, and we're going to see if this thing will cut. Alright, so first on the list is 40 thousandths thick stainless right here, and this is off of an old barbecue grill, so we're going to try this. I'm sitting on about 25 amps over there. It says it goes up to 45, so I figured 25 amps will surely cut that. And I got the air compressor on about 110 psi, so we're going to try our first cut and see if this thing will actually do anything. So here we go. I'm just going to follow down this edge right here with this little guard. Comes a little guard on the front of it. Keeps it from touching the tip down. So we're just going to scoot along there, come across and scoot back, and we're going to see if this thing will cut. Now I figure it's going to throw sparks, so I got my boots on just in case. Alright, so as we can see, the line's still hissing, I guess it's cooling the stuff off. But as we can see, that shot through that 40,000 thick stuff like butter right there. I'd say it's pretty hot. Let's see if we can pick it up and see what it looks like. Well, there we go, actually it did pretty good. It's got some little crunchy stuff on it. Let's see if that knocks off. Yeah, for the most part. Actually pretty clean looking little cut there, and it just zipped through it like butter, so a whole lot faster than I can do with a angle grinder, so I'm liking that for sure. Well, let's set up another piece here and see, because man, that may be the best thing I've had in my shop this year. So let's get the other one set up, and we're going to go next up. We'll go with a piece of steel, and it is 1/8 inch thick, so 1/8 inch thick steel, and that cuts so well at 25 amps. I think I'll leave it at 25 amps on this thickness and just see what it do. Alright, so let's try this piece of 1/8 inch thick steel right here, and I set me a little guide up, that way I can see if it's cutting good, it's going to be straight, because I'm not so steady with my hands. So here we go with some 1/8 inch steel. Alright, so the air compressor cut off, and by the way, that's a 30-gallon air compressor in there running at 110 psi, so it really must take a whole ton of air to blow this stuff out. But if you look right there, it actually looks really good, a lot cleaner than I would have cut it with an acetylene torch. And I'm using my little guide so it stays nice and straight, but a little bit of slag on the back. Hit that with a grinder and you'd be good. So at 25 amp, it'll go through 1/8 inch really good. So now, let's set up and we'll do this one. This piece right here is 1/4 inch. So we got a 1/4 inch piece of steel. And we're going to set that up next, and I'll probably crank the amps up to maybe 30 and just see what it does, because it cut that really well too at 25. Alright, so we got it adjusted to 30 amps over there, and this is 1/4 inch thick steel. So we got a little guide set up. We're going to run that thing again and just see how well it does on this thickness right here. Alright, so I ran a little slower with that one, but as you can see, it cut right through that 1/4 inch steel right there. Still a heck of a lot cleaner than I can do with a torch, and you don't have all that heat up. You can see the lines going through it. Actually looks just like a acetylene cut if you were cutting good. And the slag is still there, so it's still on there, but it'll knock off. That did really good, even at 1/4 inch, so I'm super impressed with this little thing so far. And like I say, I've never used one before. This is just great because there's no setup like you would with an acetylene where you got to learn how to do all your gas and stuff. So now we're going to switch over to, let's do the rotor because it's made out of steel, so the rotor's pretty thick. 0.4, so it's better than 3/8 but under a half, so we'll call it 3/8 plus a little bit. Alright, so here we go with our rotor. Like I say, it's about 0.4, so a little bit thicker than 3/8, not quite a half. So we'll cut this guy and see. I'm up on 40 amps now, and we'll see if it's going to cut this big old thick rotor. Compressor cut back off, so as you can see, it happily cut through that rotor. Like I say, it's better than 3/8 of an inch thick. Got a little slag on the bottom down there, but not bad at all. That would have took forever with an angle grinder if I was wanting a piece of thick steel like that. That thing cut pretty good. You can see I had to go a little slower. My hand's jerky. I probably contributed some to that slag right there, but hey, for not knowing what I'm doing, this thing is working really good. So I am super impressed with the plasma cutter, and this one from Harbor Freight seems to be doing pretty good. So we have gone through the steel now. I was going to do this aluminum right here, but it's got some stuff on the back. It's probably going to stink my garage up. This is an old road sign. But since it's done so good on the steel, I am going to graduate to a 1/2 inch thick piece of aluminum. As you can see right here, this is 0.494, so right at a half. And I'm going to try to cut this at the 40 amp. I'm at 35 right now, so that got cut with 39, so 40. So that got cut with 40, so I'm going to try this with 40 as well, because it says it goes up to 45, but hey, we'll see what it does at 40. So let's get this one set up, and we shall see if this little guy will cut it. Alright, so last on my trial list, and I'm super happy so far because it is cutting everything, is we're going to try this 1/2 inch thick aluminum and see, because this will be handy dandy for making motorcycle parts and stuff like that. I can cut my circles out or cut my squares out and then take them to the lathe and the mill, and I don't have to do all that cutting with a bandsaw and all that if it'll go through it like it did the steel. So let's see how it does on aluminum, and then we will decide whether or not we're super impressed by this little plasma cutter right here, and whether or not it was money well spent. But so far, I am absolutely tickled that this thing is working as well. So here we go with some aluminum. Actually looks like it cut it. I mean, not as smooth as the steel, but it did cut it. As you can see, let that little air thing cut off. So as you can see, it really blew it out of there, but it cut it good, and that's a whole lot quicker than I could do with a bandsaw, because you can't angle grind aluminum, it just gobs up everything. But it splattered aluminum all over the floor, so we'll get the camera and look at that. But hey, it cut it. And that's good enough for me, because I would cut a piece out and then machine it, so I'd take all that away. So that worked actually superb for me. So let's get the camera and we can look up close at our little pieces here and see what they look like. But I'd say this thing works good. Alright, so you can see for that last cut with that 1/2 inch thick aluminum, I was at 40 amps. And like I say, there's no setup on this thing. I'm running 220, so that's probably what's making it better, because I got the big line hooked up, you know, going up here to a 220 plug. At 110, it's probably not going to do near as good. But if you got 220, hey, power that thing up. So we're at 40 amps right now, and we cut that. So now let's go over here, and it's humming along. I guess I'm just going to leave it on until it stops running the fan, because it's probably cooling itself off. So let's go over here and have a look-see at our cuts. So the aluminum one, like I say, it threw aluminum all over the floor. So turned it molten and then blew it right out of there. That's pretty cool. You can look at the cut on the aluminum, and it just slagged it out of there. So aluminum's pretty sticky, and it's hard to cut anyway. You can see the thickness of the material and then how much slag was on it. But hey, I don't care. That looks pretty good for me. So now, if we look at the rotor up close, we can see it had some slag, and some of that may be due to me and my jerky hands, right? So I'm pretty impressed. The top cut looks pretty good, following the guide. Then this was our, it's still kind of warm. This was a 1/4 inch, and it did pretty good. Little slag on the back right there, but that was really nice too, and a whole lot faster than an angle grinder. Then we get down to our piece of 1/8, and it's looking better. So you can see it's actually got some power for lower metals, but hey, it's cutting the thick ones too, so I'm pretty happy. And then finally, we got our little tiny piece of stainless, and it had some slag on it too, but I was lower on the amperage, so I could probably blow that stuff out there a little better if I went a little higher. Alright, so there's an honest review of a plasma cutter. Just happens to be this Plasma 45 I got over at Harbor Freight, but good price on it, and it works really good. So I'm pretty tickled that a plasma cutter cuts as good as it does, because I've never used one. And so now I'm excited that I can get through some metal pretty quick in the shop, instead of having to spend half a day angle grinding to get things cut apart. Well, alrighty, thanks for watching.